Our little corner on the road again, this time in Champlain at the border crossing with U.S. Immigration. Dick McCabe, the director here. How are you, Richard?
Very good.
I don't think you and I have ever formally met before.
No, I don't think so.
You've been here for a long time, and I was down in Plattsburgh for a long time, and when I go through the border, I just zip on through. I never got inside this building. This is quite a complex.
Yeah, about 90% of our traffic passes right by. It's only a few that we invite inside.
Fortunately, I was never one of those. I walked in here this morning, and Dick was going, "Oh, I want to know all about that."
That's the result of volunteering.
At a track meet?
I helped out at a track meet yesterday and ended up dragging a rake through a long jump pit for 2 to 3 hours. So I'm a little bit lame this morning.
So you probably won't be doing that weekly?
Once a year is sufficient.
Once a lifetime by the looks of that arm there this morning. How many times did you rake that pit last night?
I lost count.
It's fun to support the kids.
Oh, it was terrific. I had never been to a track meet before locally. I was very impressed. Amazing to see the enthusiasm and see the competition. I think it's great.
Now, did you go because you have somebody competing?
My daughter was competing. It's her first year participating, so she was a little disappointed with her results, but I think the important thing is seeing all the kids trying. It was very impressive.
Track is amazing. Takes an amazing commitment to get good at it.
Right. Yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
All right, let's talk about you. Where are you from, and where have you been to get to this chair?
Well, I'm from Rouse's Point, and I've been in the area all my life, except for going away to college for 4 years at the University of Massachusetts.
Which struck a chord with me because I have a granddaughter who, with any luck at all, and if the creek doesn't rise, will be going to UMass at Amherst this fall. And you said you had a great experience there.
It's a terrific school. I'd recommend it to anybody. It was a great experience going there for 4 years.
How did you happen to choose it, Dick?
As a matter of fact, my brother had gone there before me,
Oh,
so
a family affair.
I was familiar with the campus and just very impressed with it.
Now, what year would that be that you graduated?
I graduated from Champlain Central High School in 1969, and from there in 1973 from UMass.
And we've already discussed off camera that there are a few changes on that campus since you left.
Yeah, it's huge now. At that time, there was an undergraduate population of about 20,000. That has remained fairly constant, but they've expanded the sports program and gotten some new arenas for sports, basketball in particular.
Some big-time stars graduated from that school.
Exactly. Dr. J. Julius Irving, he didn't graduate,
Or
but
didn't
he
graduate,
attended.
yeah.
He was in attendance when I was there, and since then, Marcus Camby was the most recent star, and I think he left about 3 years ago or 4. So
You ever go back for homecoming?
I haven't been back in 15 years. I visited once about 15 years ago. I'd like to go back, but just can't seem to find the time.
So after that, what?
After that, I had a few jobs here and there, and ended up working for immigration in 1976 as a part-time employee. I worked that summer and had a break of about 8 months that I didn't work, and then came back in 1977 and have worked full-time ever since.
21 years.
Basically, yeah. And became a supervisor in 1984 and port director in 88, so this is 10 years of being port director here.
I don't know how many of our viewers across the Tri-County region here in northern New York know how busy this port is.
It's one of the busiest ports on the northern border. It's probably within the top 10. In 1997, we processed about 1.5 million cars.
Wow.
And we use formulas to come up with the number of passengers. We estimate approximately 4 million passengers out of that. So it is a busy border crossing. And of course, we take in from Rouse's Point to Fort Covington all of those ports of entry come under this jurisdiction.
Oh, they do? So
Yeah.
you're in charge of the whole ball of wax. Oh.
Right. We've got 7 Class A ports of entry, what immigration refers to as Class A, and then there's 3 Class B ports. So a Class A port of entry would be a port that's open 24 hours a day, and anybody can apply for admission and be admitted through it. The Class B ports, local people are familiar with, Cannon's Corners, Jameson's Line, Churubusco. They're seasonal, they're open 16 hours a day at the most, and they're only staffed by customs. And certain aliens can't cross at those ports.
Well, it's I've had a connection in the radio business with this port of entry and the other ports that you're responsible for over the years. In as much as once a month or however often it was put out, we would get a list as to how many people were crossing the border over that period of time, and it was a pretty good guideline as to what was going on with Canadian traffic and so on. You've been here for a long time, and you know what happened. You know what happens to that Canadian dollar and how much of an impact that has on border crossings, and there have been some amazing fluctuations over the years.
Yeah. The biggest change we saw was when the Canadian dollar dropped below 75 cents in value. The traffic dropped dramatically, and it's held right around that 70-cent point for 3 or 4 years now. And that is the biggest factor in our traffic. 15 years ago, when the dollar was within 10 cents or so of U.S. currency, we probably had double the traffic that we're seeing now. And the biggest impact is in the summertime.
And hopefully that's almost here. We're recording this program on a beautiful day around the end of April of 1998, and it looks like we're going to have good weather, but I don't think you'll ever get as many people as you get way back then. You ask them where they're going, and they say, what is the word? La plage? The beach?
The beach, yeah.
I've seen some traffic jams down there at Cumberland Corners that we'll probably never see again.
I would tend to agree with you. I can remember when I started, and I couldn't believe it. At 6 o'clock in the morning, traffic would be lined up back to the Canadian office, and one car after another was headed to the beach in Plattsburgh. It was, well, the first summer I worked, I thought it was unbelievable, and questioned a lot of these people if they were telling the truth or not. I couldn't comprehend it, but indeed it was true. And that lasted for 2 or 3 years. We saw that kind of traffic, but it's no longer like that.
And I imagine there'll never be an equity in that dollar, will there?
I don't think the Canadian government has any interest in bringing it close to par, not at the current time.
But there have been other tremendous changes at this port and some of the others since you came on board.
Mainly from our perspective, the immigration law has become much more strict in the last 5 years especially. Congress has modified the law that we worked under 20 years ago, had been in place since 1952 with very little modification in that time. And of course everybody is aware of the press, the pressures on Congress and national politics to correct problems in immigration. And as a result, we've seen a lot of changes in the last 5 years. Inspectors have a lot more responsibility. The service can take a lot more action without going to an immigration judge. People are detained. People face the possibility of being removed without hearings. Just a whole different attitude.
You know, it dawns on me that many people crossing through this border don't know the difference between customs and immigration. They expect that it's all one big happy family, and in some sense it is.
Pretty much, because on what we call primary, outside where we inspect cars, we both do the same job, just as a matter of efficiency. We conduct customs inspections and they conduct immigration primary inspection. So for the 90% or so that just pass through those primary booths, we are one agency. And you really don't become aware of it until you come into our lobby and see us at opposite ends with a different function. Customs is interested in goods you might be bringing with you. They have more of an interest in U.S. citizens and problems they may have with law. And we focus on aliens and their admissibility, or inadmissibility, as the case may be.
Before we finish our little program today, we'll get a bird's eye view of your operation, meet some of the key people involved, and find out what primary and secondary means and a few other things.
I think it'll be interesting for you, yeah.
Can you, without revealing any trade secrets, I don't want you to have to shoot me before I go home here today, but can you remember some of the high-profile cases generally that would stick in your mind over the last 21 years, Dick?
There's been several. Probably the biggest one that I recall was within a few months of becoming port director, we encountered 32 Pakistanis in a trailer on the truck
remember that
lane.
one.
Yeah, that was a memorable day. Just the logistics of dealing with that number of people. And it was a high-profile case. Ultimately, it was lost by the prosecution. There is a need when you prosecute for alien smuggling of connecting the person operating the vehicle to prove that he has knowledge that the smugglees were there. And in that particular case, the truck driver was able to convince jury, or his attorneys were able to convince them that he did not have knowledge that 32 aliens were in the trailer. And so he walked free.
This is a little frustrating to you after working so hard on a case.
There is frustration. Of course, from our perspective, we only handle the initial portion of it, and then it's turned over to investigators in that particular case. We work closely with Border Patrol, and their anti-smuggling unit from Swanton handled that case. We have, both Immigration and Border Patrol are part of the Immigration Service under Department of Justice, and we have a close working relationship. We basically complement each other. Border Patrol intercepts people who are trying to cross between ports of entry, as well as people who may not be legally in the United States. And of course, our role is to stop those that are coming through a port who are inadmissible, or attempt to stop them.
You do it a lion's share of the time, that's for sure. How many people do you have working in this port and the various other ports under your purview?
We've got 36 full-time employees and 18 part-time. And the part-time number fluctuates. We've had as many as 25. The full-time number of personnel is pretty steady at 36.
Ultimately, before our program is finished today, we'll find out more about recruiting, what kinds of people you're looking for and how you get them, and how this general operation works so smoothly. Today it's not a very busy day at this time of the morning. We're recording this about 20 minutes to 10 in the morning. This looks like a breeze over here.
And it can change very suddenly. We have situations where Canada Immigration will bring back 5 or 6 people for processing by us. They refuse them admission, and we determine they're illegally in the country, and we can be tied up for hours processing these people for detention and ultimately probable removal from the United States. So it's deceptive. The calm before the storm.
Like many other jobs, yeah, and it could happen almost instantaneously.
Exactly.
Did you, as you were a young person, did you envision this kind of career for yourself? Are you one of those people who had a goal early in life to get into a position such as this, or was it pure serendipity that brought you over here?
Serendipity. I had no desire to come into this line of work.
Or to rake at the match.
Exactly. I've talked to people, interviewed them for jobs, and a lot of times we'll talk to college graduates, and one of the first things they tell me is, I really don't have an interest in this type of work, and I always tell them, just jump at the first job you can get is my advice, and I did that and pretty much stayed here.
And you made a career of it.
Right.
There are still people who do stay in the same job for 20 years, although nowadays people sometimes start their adult lives by believing maybe they'll change careers sometimes twice, 3 or 4 times before they're of retirement age. It's amazing.
This is one of the things I point out to the new employees is if you do this in the federal government, you've got a lot of opportunities, but you've got continuity as well with a retirement program and years of service. You can try a lot of different careers and still have that same background support of a retirement plan. So it does have a lot of pluses in that regard.
Obviously done well for you, and you've returned the favor.
Yeah, I've been very happy here and very happy with the staff we've got. A lot of local folks. That's something that's changed in the last 20 years. When I started, hiring was done from the PACE exam, and we had people from all over the country that came here.
Yeah.
And usually within 2 or 3 years, they were looking to return to their home base. So we've been very fortunate with changes in hiring practices. We're able to hire people locally now, and they stay with us, and we've gotten some excellent people.
And I think there's a lot to be said for that, and especially in your case, you grew up in the Rouse's Point area, and you're home.
And that's probably why I'm partial to hiring local people. I think it's excellent not to have a turnover like we did at one time. I think it's beneficial to the public as well, because we have, I don't know exactly, I would guess our average inspector probably has 10 or 12 years working here.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
And that is amazing, because in the Immigration Service, overall, the turnover in the inspections program is people are in it for like 2 or 3 years and then they leave. So we're very fortunate.
Somebody doing something right. Isn't it the part of the country involved here? We never do a program where we don't promote the North Country, and there are a lot worse places to live on the face of the earth than here in northern New York.
Exactly. And I think the service recognized that a few years ago when they created the Vermont Service Center in St. Albans, and they were looking to tap into a good labor source for the type of work they do. And I think it was a recognition that in this area there is a good work ethic, and you get 8 hours work for 8 hours pay, something that the federal government doesn't always seem able to do, unfortunately.
We don't have to go down that road, but
No.
yeah, you've laid the groundwork for sure. We're so delighted that you invited us up here today, and in the next hour and a half, we hope to get a real good picture of what your people do here, Dick.
Well, we've got several people that are eager to tell you about their particular part of immigration.
I'll bet you they're hiding right now. You can't fool me.
Not at all. Not at all.
They're ready to go.
Anxious to talk.
Thanks so much, and our program will continue in just a moment. Through the miracle of television, we've moved our musical chairs around the table in the same room we started our program in. And I want you to meet Bruce Moore. How are you?
Good.
I'm great, too. Tell me about what you do here.
Well, I let people into the United States that want to work in the United States
Ah, you've been here for,
for more than 20 years.
okay.
Now, what I do is I work with the NAFTA program, which was put into place as a free trade program back in the late 80s. And then in 1993, I believe, it changed to the NAFTA program, which included Mexico. And it has connotation for customs and also for immigration. What we work with is those people that want to come into the United States for employment. And we admit a fair number of people in that area each year.
Well, I guess most of us in the media and most the individuals who might be watching this program are familiar with NAFTA, having heard so much about it recently, but I'm sure most laymen have no idea what it's all about.
Well, NAFTA has reduced the customs duties over the years. Customs duties now are almost down to zero for Canadian-made goods, but it also provides for certain professionals to come into the United States. And we now admit between 100 and 200 people each month in this program.
Oh, wow. Let's go back and find out where you're from and how you got involved in this here job anyway, Bruce?
Well, I'm a local person. I was born in Ellenburg, and I live in
Oh,
Plattsburgh,
right.
so
That's great.
I guess the apple didn't fall very far from the tree.
So where did you go to? Did you go to school somewhere and come back, or what happened?
Well, I went to school at college in Plattsburgh, and I worked downstate as a teacher for a couple of years, and then I came back as a teacher in the local area, and then I got involved with the immigration service here, and I've been here ever since.
That's terrific. It must be a good place to work. You don't have too far to drive every day.
Well, it's never dull, let's put it that way.
So you've been here for over 20 years.
Yes.
In the course of, tell me what your day is like.
Well, it's busy. I get a lot of written applications. I get a lot of people that I talk to over the counter because their application is not simple, so I get drawn into it for one reason or another. We do applications for professionals in two areas. One is for managers and executives, and those are written applications. We also do applications across the counter for professional people such as architects, attorneys, engineers, and so on. And that's the greatest number of professionals that we admit.
I guess most of our viewers wouldn't realize how difficult it might be to use your profession in another country like this, especially if you want to move there and go to work.
Well, that's it, yes. But Canadians seem to assimilate pretty well. We have, as I say, quite a few people that come into the United States for employment.
Well, hopefully there'll be a lot more in the Plattsburgh area when we get this former Air Force base going, but already we have some sizable businesses in and around the Plattsburgh and Clinton County area which have their sources right up here in Canada, and many of the people who work for them.
Yes, some of the people go to the local area, but in fact, the greatest percentage of them do not.
Oh.
Now, American industry has a voracious appetite for foreign workers. And, for example, in the H-1 program, which involves all foreign workers in the professional area, Congress has imposed a limit of 65,000 per year. Now, last year we reached the limit in August, so there were 6 weeks that no new H-1 workers could come in. This year we're going to reach the limit in May, next month. So that shows you what the demand is in American industry for the U.S.
Why? I wonder why.
Well, the economy in this area is not particularly good, but in the United States in general, there is a tremendous appetite for engineers, computer people, and certain other professions.
Yeah, that's true, and as you know, in the Plattsburgh area, they're building a technical college onto Clinton Community College. They're doing new programs on the various campuses trying to train technical people, but I guess a lot of these businesses need somebody with that training already in place, and that's why they're importing the talent, huh?
Well, I guess that's true. I really can't make any comment, and I don't know much about that program.
So, how hard is the process to get across the border and use your talents in America?
Well, certain professions are very easily determined. If a person is an architect or an engineer or a computer systems analyst, not only is there a great demand, but usually they're fairly easily determined to be legal and above board and admissible. Some of the professions, such as management consultants, are a little bit tougher because we have difficulty with the definition of a management consultant.
So the process doesn't always take 5 minutes. Is that what you're telling me?
Exactly. Some are pretty straightforward, pretty cursory indeed, but many are difficult. Let's put it that way.
Now, are you in charge of the other ports in this area, or do you just work right here?
No, I just work right here. If it is an application that has any complexity, the people are advised to apply here, and it usually gets to my attention.
Do you like your work?
Yes, it's very interesting.
Meet a lot of interesting people. Do you ever maintain friendships with some of the folks you meet?
Oh, yes. Many of the people that we deal with are repeat customers, particularly those in the local areas. So we get to see these people several times each year, and of course, they yearly make new applications.
That's great. Well, good luck in everything you do.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thanks so much, Bruce. And you know, on a beautiful sunshiny day, we're not going to spend the whole time inside an office somewhere. So we came outside and decided to take a picture of that beautiful big sign which says United States Border Inspection Station in Champlain, New York. Most of our viewers, I'm sure, have seen it, although they may not have paid attention to it. And most people never see the inside of this building, as I never did until today, because hopefully I'm not one of the bad guys. We're outside with Noel Heinert.
Heinert, yes.
All right, you told me, we got to go back to the beginning. You told me I interviewed you some 20 years ago about the Shroud of Turin. How the heck did you ever get connected with that idea?
Well, that's because of my affiliation with the church as a deacon in Ross's Point. And I've always been interested in the subject, and I still am. And 20 years ago, you interviewed me at the Windows on the Bay.
Windows on the Bay. I couldn't even remember the name of the restaurant, but now the Shroud is still the subject of a great deal of discussion and controversy, isn't it, huh?
Oh, yes. It's very important, and they doing new research on it, and I think it's going to be proven to be authentic.
Now that it's back in the church after the fire, it's been involved in a couple of fires over the years, as we know.
It has,
right?
yeah. Now the original owners of the Shroud have turned it over to the church now. Now it's owned by the Catholic Church, but still kept in Turin.
I don't know. I kind of hope that people talk about it forever, you know, just from my humble point of view. There's been so much discussion about it, and it's just truly amazing to me. And I know you've been really a student, haven't you?
Oh, yes, for years.
Yeah. So now, are you from this area, Noel? Tell me about your background.
I'm from Worcester, Mass. I came up here 35 years ago
Oh.
and married a girl from Ross's Point, and that's why I'm here.
That'll do it, you know.
Yeah, and I love it up here. You know, it's a good place to live, good place to work. I've bbeen with the Immigration Service for 15 years.
Have you really?
Yeah.
I used to spend a little time in Worcester, Mass, on a place called Lake Quinsigamond.
Yeah, know it well.
I used to row crew in college, and we had some pretty good races against Clark University back almost before you were born, Noel, a long, long time ago. But that's pretty area too.
Yeah, I went to Assumption in Worcester, Assumption College, and nice. It's a nice city.
Yeah.
Nice city.
Okay, let's get back up to the present time. How did you get hooked up with immigration, and what's going on here?
Well, I just got interested in the service and put in an application and got hired, and then things went that way. Went pretty good from there.
Okay, so what do you do now? What's your
Right
position?
now I'm a supervisor here at Champlain, and I oversee the shifts and the work that happens here.
How many people involved, would you say, offhand?
Employees?
Yeah.
Oh, there's about 35 employees here at Champlain, and the majority are full-time employees, and there's about 10 part-timers.
Do they work 40-hour weeks, most of the guys?
It
gals?
depends. It depends on the time of the year. You know, they call them intermittent employees. And in the winters they work less, and in the summers they work 40 hours a week.
No, we're not officially at summer yet, although we got a beautiful sunshiny day today. But the traffic is fairly light as we're right out here in the middle of things.
Yes, during the week it is quite light. Weekends it picks up, but of course you have to realize with the discount on the Canadian money, I'm sure that hurts our economy here in the States, and as well as the traffic as well.
It's amazing. You've been here long enough to remember the days that Dick McCabe mentioned to us a few minutes ago in our interview. Those were the glory days for border traffic.
Oh yes, I can remember when we used to put almost on a weekend 10,000 cars a day through here, and that's gone down tremendously. Of course, as you notice, the truck traffic is pretty slow today, but that's pretty good now because of the exporting from Canada. You know, with the money being low in Canada, it's great for their export business.
So now you have car traffic on one side and only semis over there? How does that work?
We have car traffic on this side here, and on that side is buses and semis. And we'll go over there and see what we do with them in a few moments. Okay.
Okay, so
Now,
what's the
over
process here?
Over here, a car pulls up to the boot, and the inspector talks to everybody in the vehicle. He has to speak to every single person in the vehicle, ask them usually, first of all, the most important question is their citizenship. And if they're not Canadian citizens, then they usually have a document they use to travel with, what they call a travel document or a passport. And they present that document, and if the document has to be documented, in other words, they go inside to secondary, inside the building, and fill out a form for their passport when they have a visa.
So that's what secondary it is. When the door opens.
Not only that, we'll get into the other parts of secondary a little later, but that's part of secondary. Also out here, to me, this is the most important part of the operation, because if you don't get the people sent in from here, they're gone down the road. You miss them. So sometimes if you have smuggling cases or people that are not legitimate travelers or visitors, you want to get them inside to speak to them and see what they're doing, what they're about. And that's the very important part of this whole operation, is right here.
Sometimes the inspector here will ask a few questions and sometimes a few more questions. And I've heard tell that after you've worked here a while, you kind of get a sixth sense when you look over that automobile.
Well, when you've been here a while, you kind of get an intuition, a gut feeling, like you say, of who you're talking to and what they're about. Some have it a little more than others, and the important thing is to find out where they live, their citizenship, where they're going, and the purpose of their trip to the States. Why are they coming here? And if you feel they need further questioning or further inspection, then they go inside and talk to an officer inside the building.
But your mind, after a while, I guess, gets to be almost like a computer. You're weighing everything you see and sense and hear.
Well, not necessarily. There's some questions that should be always asked every single person coming in, but you kind of, use common sense, and depending on the cultures and the people that are traveling, you kind of gear your questions to those people, and you don't want to offend anybody. You can do your work as a human being and treat everybody humanly.
Yeah, I imagine the human relations are important too, because you like to maintain your good name, but you also have to uphold the law, right?
That's right. That's very true. Very true.
Did you start out there?
Oh yes, I started out right here as an inspector, and I worked the primary and secondary, and I worked the outports. We have outports here too. We cover 2 ports east of us here in Ross's Point, and we cover 1 in Moores. We cover 1 over in Trout River and Fort Covington. So we go quite a ways west. That's under this jurisdiction. So we've worked at all places, and with the experience, and as you get into the longevity of being here, well, I was offered a supervisor's job and I took it.
And we can understand why. You get the special uniform and the whole bit. But this is not a bad organization to work for either, obviously, or you wouldn't have stayed here all these years.
No, I enjoyed the Immigration Service tremendously. It's been very good to me, and very pleased to be here. And like I think was saying earlier, I've been very fortunate because of my document expertise. I've been able to travel around the world for the service, teaching how to pick up bad documents, fraud documents, and how to stop people from getting on those planes coming to the States that have no documents.
Those are all things we have to. Are you going to show us some of that stuff inside?
I'll show you some documents inside and what I look for and how we pick them off, the photo subs and the altered documents, passports.
Like I said to Bruce a few minutes ago, I feel as though I should get college credit for coming up here today. I'm learning. I learn every day we go out with our cameras and talk to people. A lot of fascinating jobs in the North Country, but yours, Noel, I think is one of the most fascinating of all. I can't wait to see more.
It's a good place to learn geography. It's a good place to learn about cultures and about different ways people live. It's a tremendous way to learn up here. It's amazing. We are very fortunate here in Champlain because we're on the throughway between Montreal and New York City. We get a good variety of traffic, not necessarily just Canadians. We get a lot of Canadians, but we get people from all over the world that come through here to visit New York City. So we're very fortunate. We see a lot of different documents, a lot of different nationalities. And if you're a personable person and you like to talk to people like I do, you can get to learn about their nationality, about their culture, about their religion, and about everything else that comes into play.
You've had the good fortune to travel to many other countries along the way, too.
Yes, I was lucky. I was sent to Africa, sent to Europe, and sent to the Far East. and very pleased about that. Made a lot of good friends over there, and we still have these friendships that we maintain.
That's great. We're going to talk a lot more about that later. And something else I want to mention while we're standing here, the wind is kind of brisk, but it is a beautiful day compared to some of the mornings we've had over the last week. But the difference in weather between this location where we're standing and my home, for example, in Morrisonville in the wintertime can be tremendous. And we might have a pretty good day down there, and I hear on the radio or television, well, the border's closed. We can't go north tonight to the hockey game.
It's amazing how up here on the hill here in Champlain, even from here to the downtown Champlain area, there's a difference in weather. You know, it'll blow and it'll be very cold up here, and as you go 2 miles down the road and the sun is shining. It's incredible.
Some of us do remember, and Calvin alluded to it earlier in our interviews, what it was like before the Northway came, and some of those trips to Montreal and back in those snowstorms, some of those rides back in the 50s, even I would like to forget.
That's before my time up here. See, I'm a young man.
But even then in the wintertime, some of these stretches of road on both sides of the border can be a little tense.
It can be nasty, even north of here, going up towards Naperville there, it can be pretty nasty. It's all wide open field. When that west wind blows in the winter, you know it. It's hard to see the road, but we manage.
Well, today is a good day, so we can appreciate the good weather. Anything else out here you want to mention, Noel?
Well, I want to take a look at the vehicle. See, the inspectors are talking to everybody. And over here on this first booth, we're going to go inside and look at this. We're doing a prototype program here, what we call electronic inspections, where there's nobody. You notice there's no inspector in the booth. It's all done by remote video. And we're going to do this for you and show you how it works. And this is a program that's being tested here in Champlain with the hope of having it effective and running at different ports of entry along the northern border.
So this is the first here?
This is the first on the northern border.
Ooh.
So it'll be interesting. We'll show you how this
We're
works.
on the ground floor. We'll
even run a vehicle through it to show you how it works. Works pretty good.
We'll do that in just a moment.
Hey, Bill, you want to move that out of the way, the van?
So we got a sign up here that says electronic inspection, and that's the clue, huh?
That's the clue. The vehicle drives up to the boot, and there's several cameras here. You'll notice there's cameras in the boot. You'll notice on the pole here there's a camera.
Oh, behind us. Oh, yeah.
Which we can look into the trunk with this camera.
Oh.
It's incredible. There are different cameras here. There's a document reading camera in there, and there's also a camera that can scan the front and the back seat of the vehicle. And you can, talk to everybody.
Now, is that done automatically, or somebody does it remotely?
There's
or
an officer working the system inside. And we'll show you how that works in a few moments.
That's kind of neat to be out of the weather and do the process. And
it's good on a midnight shift when it's about 20 below zero.
How long have you been doing this, Noel?
We've been working with this, I'd say, about a year, and we're still working with it, trying to perfect it before we get it into full operation. And the hope is eventually to have one of these at Moores also.
What's your opinion so far?
I think it works great. It works great, because you can do everything from inside, and also an officer can be doing something else at the same time.
Now, does he talk to the people in the car too?
Oh yes. Oh yeah. He
Okay.
talks to the people, and he asks them to show him the documents. You can see the documents through a special camera, and it also frees up the officer when nobody's out here to be doing some other kind of work, immigration work.
Now, and is everything on those cameras recorded, or can't you say?
Not at this time, but maybe in the future.
Yeah, well, that's extra documentation, right? Well, we'll follow you. Let's walk up here and see what we have. We're not in a vehicle, so I'm not sure that how that would work. Oh, I see. Okay. So here are the cameras inside here. Tell us what we're looking
Now,
at.
these cameras in the boot here are movable from inside. They can be scanned, they can be moved, you can get a zoom lens will come in and bring you right up to the person very close. It's pretty neat. You've got to see how the camera's moving right now.
And we certainly can.
Okay, so when you get inside, you'll see we can see everything that's going on out here inside on the video.
And as you said, you can scan various parts of the vehicle inside,
Right.
and with other cameras even outside, so you can
also.
You can get right up close to the license plate and anything
we
else.
can read the
right?
plate also. We can read everything. Yep.
Now,
Pretty neat.
would this inspection here possibly lead to a secondary inspection
Yes,
if you
it will.
found something that wasn't quite right?
Yes, it does. Before the gate opens, you tell the people what to do. If they're going down the road, you can tell them they're free to go. Or if you want them to come inside with their documents, you tell them to park in the parking lot down here and come on inside. And the majority do. Occasionally you may lose somebody, but most of the time the people will do what you tell them to do and come inside for the inspection.
And I would imagine that since this is kind of a pilot project, you have to document things that you do pretty well to decide what
Exactly.
the future might be.
Exactly. You have to document all its good points and bad points, you know, when it's working properly, when it's not working properly, so that the electronic crew can come and, you know, gear the machine to work the way it should be working.
And I imagine the inspectors kind of like the idea too. It's a very interesting new twist, huh?
It is. It's a new approach to inspections, you know. And I can see its value. You take, like, in some remote places where you don't have that many automobiles, you say maybe they're only open 8 hours a day, and maybe get about even 20 or 25 cars a day. It could be an asset, where the inspector who's in the building could be doing some other kind of work.
So it'll be here a while longer, you think, before a final determination is made as to how whether they want to put them in other ports?
Well, it's going to happen. It's going to go to other ports. It's an enhancement to the enforcement. How long it's going to take before they're in full operation, I don't know. I don't know at this time.
State-of-the-art equipment, though.
It is state-of-the-art equipment. Excellent. We'll see that inside in a few moments. Let's move on to the secondary here. When your car comes in, for instance, and you want to send somebody into secondary, there's two possibilities. They can be going either to customs secondary or immigration secondary, or both. Now you'll see around here there's garages around the corner.
We can walk and talk.
Okay, sure. Once you send them into, say, customs secondary, you send the vehicle into the garage over here, and the custom officer comes out and checks out the vehicle. If the slip that you put on the windshield says you want them to send them to immigration after customs, then when customs is done, they go up to immigration for another secondary
Yeah,
inspection.
that's important, I think, to point out as we go, the difference between the purposes for immigration and customs.
Yeah. Well, customs deals mostly with material things, you know, merchandise. Immigration deals specifically with people. Okay, so we want to make sure that they're properly documented, they have the proper papers to travel with, and that the purpose of their trip is a legitimate trip to the United States, either as a tourist or a business person. People who are coming in to break the law, we try to catch them at the border before they get in the country. That's the reason for the secondaries.
Mostly our viewers and radio listeners and newspaper readers see only the very high-profile cases when there's been a major arrest or some other snafu of one kind or another, but there are interesting things that happen almost daily here, aren't there?
Yeah, we have a lot of alien smuggling cases, people smuggling people in, and that's where we come into play. And we have a prosecution program here, where once they've been picked and we've finalized that they are smuggling other people in, we will prosecute them. They will go to court in front of a magistrate, and usually the vehicle that they're using will be seized by the U.S. Immigration Service. And we'll talk to the prosecuting officer in a few moments, and she will explain to you exactly what she does.
Yeah, that vehicle seizure is something that showed up on news stories, I know, over the last few years, and it's very interesting sometimes for a person to get that vehicle back, depending on what their crime was.
Well, sometimes they get them back, and sometimes they don't.
They don't.
They don't. You know, if it's smuggling for gain, usually you don't get the car back or the vehicle. If it's other areas of smuggling, like, you know, not necessarily for gain, try to do a favor for a good friend or a family member, they will sometimes give the vehicle back with a mitigated fine. You don't just get it back.
No, they always got to pay the piper, don't you?
You got to pay for the, you know, for what you did.
Very interesting, and a lot of the proceeds from things that happen at this border are, we've been at news conferences where the proceeds have been distributed among various law enforcement agencies for one reason or another. It's interesting how that works too.
Well, we don't necessarily do that for the Immigration Service. You know, the proceeds from drugs and whatnot do get passed around for different enforcement agencies. But ours is usually, an immigration case is not that way. The money stays with immigration, usually.
Okay. And there's a need, always need for more.
Oh, yes, yes, because, you know, the money goes into the general fund and is distributed equally among the different agencies, immigration-wise.
As many agencies, U.S. Immigration has for many years been underfunded, so you know, things are beginning to pick up again, I guess, a little bit from what I can understand today.
Well, they have increased our budget, and because of the new immigration law that came out in April of this year, and the whole gist of the law is to pick up the illegals in the states, detain them, and then deport them back to their countries. And it's been working very well, very well.
That's great. Where are we going next?
Let's go inside to our secondary area for immigration.
We'll do that in just a moment. All right, we're inside, secondary, at the
Okay.
immigration at the border. Noel?
Most people who come in are legitimate tourists, and they're traveling on either a travel document or a passport or a U.S. passport. If they have a foreign passport with a visa in it, which allows them to make an application to visit the United States, they have to come into immigration and get documented. And they fill out these forms for their passport that have visas in to visit the states. Now you have two different colors here, you notice. You got a green form and a white form. One is good for 3 months and one is good for 6 months. The one for 6 months is a person who is not necessarily living in Canada, but visiting Canada also and coming to visit the States. And he'll fill this out with his visa, and he'll be charged $6 for the form. Okay. There's a program now that has 26 countries on it that no longer require a visa to visit the States, like France, England, Ireland, and certain countries. They fill out a green form, which is good for 90 days to visit. And they also pay $6 for this form also. There's a fee attached to these
Yeah,
forms.
there's always that $6
Okay.
fee. Yeah.
These are just normal, routine secondaries. They have to be documented when they come into the country. The others, like, say, for criminals that are not allowed in the States, they will be sent inside and they will be either refused entry to the States because of their criminal records, and sometimes they will even be removed because of their criminal records, depending on how lengthy the criminal record is. Some will be set up for an immigration judge hearing to determine whether they can come back or not, and if they do, if they can come back, but they have to do it to come back. And some of these people are allowed sometimes to file for a waiver to come into the States and visit because of their criminal record.
You know, it never ceases to amaze me how somebody with a long criminal record would have the audacity to try to get across a border crossing like that, because knowing some of the people who've been arrested in the process with really long, extensive criminal and prison records, doesn't that boggle your mind sometimes?
Well, those people usually will lie about the whole thing. They'll lie out on primary about their criminal record, and they'll get inside here and lie again about the criminal record. And eventually it's found out that they do have a criminal record. And if you can prove that they lied specifically to enter the States, then they get prosecuted. Then they're banned for a long, long time.
But there are aspects of the law which some of our viewers may not be aware of about what happens when you're convicted of a crime, not being allowed to go across the border.
Well, when you're convicted of a crime, you go in front of the magistrate, and then you're excluded. And then you cannot come back.
Ever?
Well, for several years. After 5 years, you can file for a waiver. Okay. And of course, once you get prosecuted in the United States because of a crime you committed at the border, you now have a criminal record with immigration, and sometimes with the state or with the federal government, depending on what the crime was. Okay. And of course, that also just adds on to your other criminal record. We'll talk to the prosecuting officer in a few moments, and she will explain to you exactly what she does and how she goes about prosecuting these people.
Okay. What else in this room? Anything?
Let's go look at some documents. Let's find a place where we can look at some documents. I can show you some passports. We can do it right on the end of the counter. I'll be right back.
All right, Noel, we turned around. We're at the counter. What are you showing us?
Okay, we got a U.S. passport here. It's a legitimate passport. And I want you to notice one thing on. Now, these passports, all travel documents can be photosubbed, and they are tried. They try to photosub them. Depends on the expertise of photosubbing. Some are better than
Photosubbing,
others.
what does that mean?
Photosubbing means taking the picture out of this document and replacing it with someone else's picture,
Ah,
not
okay.
the rightful owner of the passport.
Uh-huh.
Okay. In this U.S. passport here, this edition, you have 3 red stars on the corner here. And these stars are made of what they call fugitive ink, which means that when someone alters this lamination or lifts it up or puts a chemical in here to lift up the lamination, the star will run.
Oh.
That's why they use the word fugitive. It's running.
Okay.
Okay, this one here, you notice how crisp these 3 stars are.
Yes.
Over here, notice how blurred these 3 stars are.
Right.
Believe it or not, this passport, this picture was replaced. So the person who presented this document, it's his photo, but the biographical data belongs to somebody else.
So an inspector noticed that on the secondary, right?
He would notice it on it. Well, the first thing that would clue me on a secondary is the stars are blurred. Now, why are they blurred? Sometimes they may get blurred if the passport got wet. But this one here, as you can see, never got wet. It's a brand new passport. It's a brand new issue. So there I would go and look at the passport under either a microscope or with a loop, and I will determine that this thing has been photosubbed. And then the person is detained, prosecuted, and returned to Canada eventually. After he has served, when he gets prosecuted, he could either pay a fine or he could serve time in jail, depending on the judge. Okay. Here again, it's an interesting one. Now, believe it or not, the Great Seal here goes half over the photo and 3/4 over the page. Believe it or not, this whole lamination is totally counterfeit.
Oh.
And it's pretty good. It's a very good counterfeit. And the reason I know it's counterfeited is that in the shield on the Great Seal, we have wavy lines here. And the
Yeah.
original seal does not have wavy lines.
Who would know that but you,
Yeah,
Noel, and
you
your
gotta have a
people
good
here.
memory.
Yeah.
So this thing here was an original passport. Everything is good on the passport except the photo was changed and they put a counterfeit lamination over the photo. A good job. Today they can lift off laminations. It's amazing. Chemically take them off, or whether they can either freeze dry them. They put them in a freezer, microwave them, and the stuff just pops off. It doesn't disturb the fibers. It's amazing what's happening today in the field of documents. It's changing daily. Over here we have a permanent resident card. People who are permanent resident of the United States from a foreign country. Now this one here is a good card. This one here, believe it or not, is totally counterfeit. Now there's not much difference in color, is there?
No.
No. The reason I know this is because on this card, you notice all along the outer lamination is like little marks all over it.
Yes.
Okay, like mother put in a pie.
Yep.
On this one here is totally clear.
Okay, but that could have been those marks could have probably been counterfeited as well, huh?
Not really,
Not
because there's a pattern for these marks that are put in the card, a certain pattern they
Oh,
follow.
I see. Okay.
And when they put them in, they will try to put them in, but they don't match the pattern. Okay? And these here, most people that are here illegally will buy these off the street in New York City
Come on.
to allow them to work. Oh yeah, you can buy one of these for $35.
Oh, boy.
Not bad. And, and you go into find a job, and most employers are not aware of the security of this card, or if it's good or bad, and they assume, well, hey, it looks good to me, so we'll hire the person. Okay. Also, another thing that's interesting on the back of this card is what they have rainbow printing. See how the colors go from one to the other? Now, like a real rainbow, the colors will blend in from one to the other. Notice the counterfeit card, they stop. The colors stop before the next color starts. I have yet to see a counterfeit card that has been able to duplicate the rainbow printing on the back of the card.
Isn't that
It's
amazing?
amazing. And a lot of countries are now going to rainbow printing in their documents. Because it's almost impossible to blend in this color variation when you counterfeit.
I imagine some of these changes are so subtle that you might have to look at that card for a while to determine that, and some of them just jump right out at you, huh?
Well, the majority jump right out at me.
You've been doing it. You've been doing it for a while. What else do we have?
Right here we got a British passport, which is photo subbed. And the only reason I know this is that you notice there's two little crowns here
Yes.
on the top and the bottom of the photo.
Right.
All right, notice how the bottom crown goes underneath the photo, where the top one is totally there, bottom and top of the crown. So this one here was altered. And notice the quality of the bottom crown. It looks like it was traced in, as opposed to being printed. Because you got to remember, most travel documents are made of high quality paper, tremendous quality printing. So you look for this. You gear in on these things. Over here, we have a good Italian passport. Okay. And if you were to put this under a black light, you would see there's a pattern in the lamination. All countries have a ultraviolet pattern in their lamination under the UV light. This one here, believe it or not, is totally counterfeit. Every single page, the whole document is counterfeit. Okay? And the reason I know this is because when they counterfeited this document, you notice the numbers up here? They erased the original numbers on the master copy and just photocopied it and made other passports. And also under the black light, again, every piece of paper in a document has what they call a watermark. A watermark is put in the paper when the paper is made. So it can't be, so a watermark never fluoresces. You can only see a watermark through transparent light. Okay.
I see it there.
So if I were to put this under a black light, this document here, that watermark would fluoresce because it was chemically added.
Boy, interesting.
But it's amazing when you think of it. You can imagine what they're paying for these things.
Sure.
You know, you're talking anywhere in the vicinity from $5,000 to $30,000 US dollars for a counterfeit document. It's incredible. And over here is a good French passport, and what I gear in on this here is a dry seal on the corner of the picture. A dry seal is an impression made with a brass plate on the corner of the picture and on the page, and the lamination. Now, under UV feature, this lamination has all kind of security on it. When you take this picture out and replace it, you're going to damage the UV feature on the page, like this one here was. This one here is a photo sub page. The picture was changed. Also, you might notice too, when they lifted the lamination, look at the dirt along that lamination here underneath. That should not be there. So that kind of clues you in on something. You look at the dry seal that's on the corner of this photo and on 3/4 of the page, and you're going to find it's not concentric. It does not continue. It's off-center. Little things you look for. These were, by the way, all these documents were picked up here at Champlain.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Great.
you know, they're not from any place else. Okay. One of our biggest problems today that we're having, not only here but all over the world, is it costs so much to buy a counterfeit or an altered document that we have what they call imposters traveling. You go out and buy a document, a good document that looks almost like you, and you travel with that, even though it's not your document. So now you have to gear in on trying to match the face with the picture in the passport. And I would say it's up to about 70% of our cases here are imposters. It's a lot cheaper to buy a good document that doesn't belong to you than buy a counterfeit document. But there are certain things in a person's features, his face, that never change in life. Your eyes, your lips, your nose, your ears. And a quick way to identify an imposter,
This is amazing.
a quick way that I use to identify an imposter, I can do it within 10 seconds. I draw a straight line underneath the person's nose and see where it traverses the ears. And I just take I'll take a piece of paper or anything, and I'll run a straight line underneath the nose on the photo, see where it traverses the ears. I'll look at you. Now, if on the photo your ear lobe is, say, an inch below the nose, and the person standing in front of me, it's above, because everybody's got different ears.
Got him.
You know, it's just like a fingerprint. Everybody's got different ear lobes and different ear openings. It's incredible.
And now they're using eyes for identification electronically.
Right, and we haven't got to that yet here. At least I'm not aware of it here at this place where we're using the eyes, but I see they have the new technology. We use a complete hand for identifying people now. You know, the actual length of fingers and the fingerprints. The new technology we're not using yet. But another thing too that's interesting is, you notice the color of this passport, how it's kind of looks like it's been dropped in the water.
Yes.
Well, what happened here is, when I originally picked this up, I understand you can use insecticide. And by spraying a certain insecticide on the lamination, it will lift the lamination because of the chemicals found on the insecticide. And when I first picked up this passport, you could smell the insecticide in here. It's incredible. You know, all little techniques they use. It's a challenge to keep up with it because these things change daily. Document fraud is a big business. They make a lot of money off of it, and it's changing constantly.
Noel, do you, besides teaching us here today, and it's a great education, do you teach this to recruits? All these things you're
yes.
telling us?
I teach all the new employees here. I also go around all over the United States and teach our own people in the Immigration Service, as well as foreign immigration officers and airline people.
The airline, I find that very interesting. How do you get involved with that?
Well, there's a new law that an airline brings in an illegal alien, someone who is not properly documented. They are fined $3,000 for every single person they bring in.
Oh, that
It
would
gets
be
to be
incentive
expensive.
To catch 'em. Yeah.
So, of course, they ask for training. So they can stop these people from boarding the plane, say like in, we're in West Africa. And once they get on the plane and they get to the States, it's going to cost us at least $50,000 to $60,000 to send them back to their home country, with the appeals and they may file for political asylum, depending on what they want to file for. If you can stop them from boarding in the country where they're coming from, you save the government an awful lot of money. You know, and they want this training.
So how much time do you spend on the road?
A couple of years I was gone, maybe half of the year.
Wow.
But now, the last couple of years, I've been pretty much tied down here. But hopefully, I'll start going again. I just came back from Toronto. I was training in Toronto and in the Buffalo area. And hopefully, within the next month or two, I'll start going around again and training some more.
That's terrific.
It's a good thing.
Now, you're also going to show us those other cameras,
Yes,
the inside
yes.
cameras at some point in time,
Let's go
too, right?
see that now.
All right, let's do it.
Notice the bus passenger. Well, we're going to go on the side of the buses, but the buses come in through the opposite side of the primary area from the vehicles. All the buses come into the garage over here. Everybody is dumped from the bus and comes inside. So you can talk to the people and also look at the documents. Me, the most important part of an inspection is not necessarily documents. That's secondary. To me, it's talking to the people. You know, in talking to someone, I can pretty much say or tell where you're from and what your nationality is just by hearing you speak to me. You know, if you present me with an Italian passport and you speak like an American or you speak like a Canadian or somebody from another foreign country, not Italian, I pretty much can tell you, that the document doesn't belong to you. Then I will go and look at the document and see if that is really a valid document, if it's been photosub or altered. And when they fill out those forms I showed you, we have them in all different languages. You present me with an Italian passport, I'm going to give you an Italian form. If you can't read or write Italian, there's something wrong.
That's a clue.
There's another little
That
clue
would
that,
be a
you know,
clue.
little things that kind of zero in on. Maybe it's not that person.
So it's almost always a combination of things that
Many
make
things.
you, yeah. All right,
I
well,
like to talk. You know, small talk is very, very valuable here. Talking to people about different things, you know, their culture. You know, some people may give you an Indian passport, never been to India. There's something wrong here. It's possible they may be legitimate, but the majority of people traveling on an Indian passport have at least lived or been in India for some time. Little things like that.
that's great.
Let's go look at the remote video.
We'll do it. All right, now we're in the cubicle on the other end of that remote camera outside with Bill Obrey, right?
That's right. That's
All right,
right.
Bill, what do we got here?
This is a command center here. Okay, this
I
is
can
where we
tell.
actually run the video station. Sooner or later, we're going to have Moore's New York port of entry on this same video. What we can do here is we can turn the key and we can watch Moore's. You know what I'm saying? We can use the cameras at Moore's.
Right from here.
Right from here, yeah. We can do inspections right from here at different ports of entry.
All right, I tried to use my powers of observation, and I saw somebody walking toward the van as you and I were talking.
We have somebody getting in the van right now. We're going to do a little demonstration here. I don't know if you can pick it up on the camera or not.
Well, we can see a lot of it. Now, first of all, we should explain to our viewers that this isn't somebody coming across the border.
No,
we're kind of setting this up
This
here.
is an immigration employee that we have, that we've talked into getting into the van. So,
Okay.
as you can see, we have this is what we call our text terminal. This is where we can run names, query checks on the names and the vehicles. We can do that right from in here. Okay, I'll sit down here. I'll show you.
Yeah.
I'll go over the system a little bit.
Let's go. Tell me what's happening.
We have a little headset here. This is how we talk to the people. Okay. We can actually talk to them. Pam, are you in the vehicle? Okay, you won't be able to hear her, but I can hear her over the.
Okay,
over
I'll
the-
take your word for it, Bill.
There's Pam right there in the vehicle. Turn this to quad. And a vehicle will pull up, okay, and then they'll have their window rolled down. There's signs out there telling them to roll down the window and look at the camera, and they'll pull up, okay, and then I can zoom in on their face. You know, ask them where they live and where they're going. I can see, I can see their eye movement. I can see, if they're nervous or whatever. I can.
She's nervous, I can tell.
She is very nervous. She's not happy to be out there. Are you, Pam? I can set this screen to zoom in on her face. Okay, I can look other parts of the vehicle, see if there's any other people in the vehicle. Okay. And I'll ask her, do you have anything to declare? Or where are you going? Or do you have any ID with you? Can you please place your ID in the document window, please? We have a little document door. What we do here is we'll switch it to the document camera, and we can actually see the ID, see her face. We can match it up with her face. There's a little door that tells them where to put the ID and stuff. They can actually stick passports in there or visas. Anything we want to see, they can stick in there. Okay.
Find out how old she is.
Let's check it out again. Let's see here. No, I can't see it. You're lucky, Pam. Okay, we go back to the facial. Like, say, if we want to check out the trunk of the vehicle, if we want to have them open the trunk, we can have them do that. Can you please step out and open the trunk, please? And we have a trunk camera here. This camera actually, wait a second, Pam, don't open it yet. This camera here actually, this is where we read our license plates. We can zoom in on the license plate and we can put it in the system, hit enter, and if it's, if it's okay, it's okay. If not, well. Okay, Pam, can you open the trunk for me? We can open the trunk and then we can zoom in, look around. Bottle of antifreeze there. You can tell basically there's nothing in there. Tell there's no people in the back seat. You can zoom all the way out if you like. Okay, ma'am, you can shut it.
Now, wait a minute. Can you bring that trunk on this screen?
Yes.
There you go.
A lot of times we'll just keep it right here in quad. That way we can see all the cameras at
I
once.
see, okay.
This way we can look at her face, look at the plate at the same time while we're putting the plate in the system. And while we're talking to them, we can see their eye movement and facial movements and all that stuff. See how they're acting. Of course, their ID is there. And then camera number 4 here is our blow-by camera. I'll tell her, okay, Pam, I'm going to open the gate. Pull down into the secondary inspection area. You see the garage right up ahead? Pull right in the garage there, okay? What I do from here is I'll open there's an outside gate. I don't know if you saw it when you're outside. There's an outside gate. Let me zoom out here. What I'll do is I'll hit the gate. I'll say, okay, go ahead and pull in the garage. Okay, the gate will open. And if she didn't comply with what I was saying, you could hit the outdoor siren. You can hear it there.
Oh, yes.
Okay, and that usually stops people. They're like
That would do it for me, I can guarantee
they
you.
just freeze up, you know.
Okay.
Usually, see, she didn't go down in the right spot, and we could tell that by this run-by camera. We hit here. We can see she went down the parking lot instead of in the garage. Or if you see somebody go down the road, you can call Border Patrol and tell them, you know, then you have the vehicle description and everything right on the camera. You can tell Border Patrol exactly the plate number, the type vehicle, how many occupants in the van, the color of the vehicle.
And that happens once in a while.
Once in a while. Now, I don't think we've had it happen here yet. We've had them go get lost and not intentionally go down the road, but yeah. Like I said, we can record all this. You know, we can record the inspection, and we can play it back. We have different sensor alarms. When the car pulls up, the sensor will go off, letting us know there's a vehicle in line waiting to be inspected. So if it say it's like a midnight shift and we're doing other things, we can actually tell when a car pulls up to the remote video. And when Moore's is up and running, we can tell when a car pulls up to Moore's. It'll pull up and the alarm will go off. We'll come back here. We'll do the inspection, and we either let them go or we'll send them back to Canada.
I see.
Okay.
Well, what would you do for a secondary up in Moores if there's nobody there?
Well, we'd have to tell them to come over, report over here in Champlain if we had a problem. We wouldn't let them pass at Moore's.
Okay, what else do we see here?
What
So
else
they'd
do we
have to go back to Canada.
Yes, have to
Yes.
go back to Canada,
Right.
come around and come over here.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And of course, if they shot by the port, then again we'd have to call Border Patrol. And they're usually in the general area over there somewhere. So, let me think here. What else we got?
Everything is done automatically when you hit go here. You can set off alarms and make the gate move and whatever you want to
Everything
do.
is done right through this PC right here. And of course, we can run all our criminal checks right here on this computer. If we had somebody like a Moore's you just wanted to do a criminal record check on, we could do it right from here.
Once again, as far as we know, this is the first one on the northern border.
Yeah, they have another system similar to it in Maine, but it's a little different.
Operational.
It's a little different, and I don't think they're using it yet. But this is a prototype site here. They're still actually working on the system. Every day we call the people up and tell them what's wrong with the system. And I was just on them before. If you see me on the telephone,
We did.
I was just talking to the gentleman about it because our screen size here keeps going a little smaller. I don't know if you notice that, but that's one of our problems.
I see.
And
It does it automatically, you mean, when
Yeah.
you don't want it to.
of course you can do that. But it still has a few bugs because it is a prototype system.
Well, that's why they set it up, so people like you can say, here's what we need, here's what we'd like to have, because the guy who puts the program together may not be an inspector. He may
Exactly.
not sit on the port, so he doesn't know what needs to happen, and you're the man, Bill.
I'm the man.
That's terrific.
See how the screen just went back to the other side?
Okay, now, will we be opening this up sometime? Will you be opening this up sometime today, or do you have a regular scheduled time you use
We
that?
don't have a regular scheduled time, but usually when it's slow, we'll open it and we'll run a few cars through it just to make sure it's operational. Make sure everything is working correctly. And it works pretty smoothly. When somebody's back here that knows how to use the system real well, it's just as fast as an inspector outside. Actually.
I'm interested in the reaction of the people going through the border, especially people you know for the first time.
A lot of people will pull up and
what's
they're
up
like,
with this?
Who am I talking to? You know, they don't know. They don't dare to talk to the box.
Voice from heaven.
Yeah. And
Well, maybe
the
not
intercom out
heaven.
there is so loud. If the window's up, they can hear it. So they'll roll down the window and they'll look around, and you got to tell them to look at the camera. Of course, a language problem sometimes exists. You know, you have Chinese people showing up, or one time I had a deaf mute show up, and I kept yelling at him and screaming at him, and he was sign language to me, but I didn't know, so I felt kind of bad afterwards. But
Do you speak French?
very little, no, I don't speak
Okay,
French.
so
I wish
if,
I did.
If this were to happen, would you have to call somebody else over here, or tell them to move to go
No, usually
outside?
we'll just go outside, and from here we can just go outside and talk to them. Say like over Moore's, a Chinese person showed up. It probably wouldn't be a very good. You know, we'd send them over here just to be safe anyway. So I don't know how we tell them, of course, but we'd have to call an interpreter in. But
Well, you know, interpreters have to take place too. Generally, during the daytime, there are people in this building that speak several languages.
yeah,
all right?
yeah, generally yes, especially Spanish and French. Noel's a fluent French speaker, and a couple others.
Yeah, okay. Well, this is an amazing process. We thank you very much for showing to us, Bill. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Now we're outside and we're on the opposite side of the building. And Noel, what happens here?
Well, on the west side of the building, we clear our charter buses, scheduled run buses, and trailer traffic, semis. And all the buses, usually the Greyhounds and the Adirondack, which are regularly scheduled runs, come into the garage, and everybody gets off the bus, goes inside to immigration, then to customs, and then gets back on the bus. And if we find somebody that's, again, trying to enter the country illegally with bad documents or not coming down for a legitimate purpose, we can take them off the bus and send them back to Canada. Okay?
Would a school bus do the same process?
School bus also would come into the garage, and it depends on the, if it's a bunch of little children, well, we would go on the bus and do the inspection instead of having all the kids get off. But most of the time we like to get the adults on a charter bus and a scheduled run bus to come inside, because the lighting in a bus is not the best. Where inside we have good lighting, we can see the documents and see the people.
You know, that's a good point. Let's talk about train traffic. How does inspection work there?
We go to Ross's Point once a day. The train comes in at noon, and we send 2 or 3 inspectors to do the train every day. We board the train in Ross's Point, and we do it right there at the station.
Okay.
And the amount of travelers varies from day to day. It can be anywhere from 50 to 150 travelers on a train.
And let's say everything goes smoothly. How long does it take to process a busload?
A busload, you can do that in about maybe 15 to 20 minutes.
Are you kidding?
Oh yeah, if everything's going smoothly.
They anticipate that when they come down through.
Oh yes, oh yes. Of course, sometimes you get maybe 5 or 6 charters at a time. So, they know they're going to be waiting until we get to them. But usually we do quite well. We move right along, depending on the people that are on the bus.
But once again, it depends on how much traffic there is on either side, how fast people get through the border. Sometimes I'm sure it's frustrating for you from the inside looking out, as it is for those people who are waiting to get to shop at the mall down there.
Yeah, that can be. It can be. But hey, that's life, Everybody has to wait for good things in life, I suppose.
But as you were telling me there, as we were talking with Bill inside and looking at the cameras, the officers do a lot of extra things here, especially maybe at night. You might be processing all kinds of documentation.
Well, like I was saying earlier, we do process petitions for immigrants to come to the States. Their families petition from family members overseas, and we do all the paperwork here. We approve it or deny it. Then it goes on to the Vermont Service Center over in St. Albans, and from there it gets sent to a place in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, where the immigrant visa is slowly put together. Then it eventually ends up in the consulates where these people live. Then they get the immigrant visa, then they come down and immigrate through the borders or through the airports.
I'm just looking. There isn't a heck of a lot of clearance for some of these
Not
buses
much.
here.
This garage is built a long time ago. Some of these buses are so big they have a hard time getting out of here. And some have to even back out to get out of here.
I've just watched the clearance coming through that bay, and I bet you it wasn't over 4 inches.
No, not really.
Maybe not even that
It
close.
was tighter. You notice how a few have hit the garage door in the
I can
past.
see it. That's why I was bringing that up, you know.
Yeah, I guess there's plans of redoing this all over. You know, making it a modern bus inspection area. Because it's just unbelievable. It's so tight. It's so tight. It's amazing how to get out of here. You got to be one good bus driver.
Are you going to, at some point today, are you going to talk about recruiting or what training has to happen when people want to join the service?
Yeah, someone will talk to you about how you go about applying for a job with the Immigration Service. Yeah,
Anything else out here, Noel, that you think
well,
of?
the only other thing is the truck lane, and most of those trucks go down to the warehouse over here. Let's go over here. We can take a picture of the warehouse.
All right, yeah, let's walk over this way. Once again, we underlined the beautiful weather that we're having toward the end of April, 1998. A few snow flurries in the air a few days ago, but this, maybe old El Nino's on his way out. We kind of hope that, huh?
Okay, wait till Calvin gets here.
Yeah, Calvin's here.
He's been to that warehouse before.
Okay.
See, once the commercial traffic comes in, and it doesn't have to go to immigration secondary. Sometimes they do send them in to immigration secondary, the drivers, or the people that are traveling with them. And once the load is cleared by customs, some may have to go down to the warehouse for other inspections, and others go down the road. It depends on the type of load they're bringing in.
Okay, but customs takes care of the stuff on the trucks. That's not your job.
Well, they take care of the merchandise.
Yeah.
We have the right to inspect the people on the trucks, and we have the right also to bring them in and do secondaries on these people if we feel we have to talk to them a little more intensified.
But I think we can also point out that even though you're separate units entirely, it's a pretty good marriage.
Oh yeah, we work well together. I think we get along very good together. We work.
And where does the Border Patrol fit into this whole picture?
Well, the Border Patrol is usually within the country. You know, we have control over the border, but anybody who, say, comes in, sneaks in through the woods, and goes down to the McDonald's or U-Ball's garage or somewhere in Champlain, that's the Border Patrol's jurisdiction. They will pick these people up and take them from there.
Well, you have communication with them.
Oh yes, we communicate all the time. Many times we'll get a smuggling case where the car will come through with the luggage and the person will walk through the woods. So we'll bring the car in and go through the vehicle and find that the person is carrying luggage that doesn't belong to him or her. And many times you'll find out that there's somebody down at McDonald's waiting for the car to pick him up. So the patrol will go get that person, bring them to their office. So now we have a smuggling case. So we have a prosecution going, and we have a car seizure.
I can remember some pretty bizarre cases over the years in my 36 or 7 years of covering news stories, and about 15 different interesting scenarios with people running through the woods, and
Oh yeah.
wow, in the wintertime and in the springtime in the mud.
It's amazing, you know, people don't realize in the winter up here how cold it gets in those woods. If you get lost, you could die out there. And you get these people from these warm countries that try to sneak in through the woods in the winter. Man, it's unbelievable. When you find them, they're almost frozen to death, or they're freezing. They're cold, and they don't realize how cold it is up here. And most of the time, this happens at night, so they don't know where they're going. You know.
Some people are a little bit desperate, and so they're trying.
Yeah.
I imagine if you saw somebody, if you had 2 feet of snow and somebody coming toward the border in a bicycle, that might be a clue.
Well, I don't know. I don't think you'd want to be on a bicycle in the winter up here, but.
So what are we going to see next, Noel?
Well, we're going to go talk to the prosecution program and see what you can find out, how we go about prosecuting these people who are breaking the laws here.
All right, let's do it.
Okay.
All right, we're back in the inner sanctum with Christine Racine. Oh, nice pictures over there, by the way.
Yes, those are all my children.
You tell me all about them.
About the 4 kids?
Yes.
Well, I have my oldest son, Eric, who's 17, and the baby's 4, and then I have Oliver and Alex are in between. Alex is 7, and Oliver is 8,
Oh, what a
soon to be 9.
what a beautiful family.
Thank you. Sebastian.
Oh,
Yes.
wonderful.
Yes.
Where did that, how did you come up with that name?
It's an old French name, Sebastien, And Mark and I just liked the name, and so we decided to name him.
Oh, that's absolutely wonderful. Before we do anything else, let's get a little bit about your background and how you got started here.
Okay. I've been with immigration for over 14 years. I started here at the Port of Entry back in '84. I started as an II, immigration inspector, stayed here for a couple years, and then I went over to Swanton Border Patrol. I was their intelligence officer over there for a while. And then I went over to St. Albans, the adjudication center there, and did some petitions, and then decided to come back into a covered position. And I have been here since '91, working as the senior immigration inspector. And what we do here is we handle all the prosecutions, vehicle seizures, and anything that happens illegally.
All the bad stuff.
Yes, all the bad stuff.
Well, that's very interesting.
I have also two other individuals that work with me here, Tom O'Connor and Tracy Parsons, but unfortunately they weren't here today. They're out.
Oh, sure. It wasn't because we were coming here, right?
No, I don't think so. I think they're just out on detail and shift work and stuff like that.
Christine, let's do a scenario. What happens when you get the bad guys? What do you do next?
Okay. Well, the memos are written. Everything happens in the lobby. It comes through the port. They refer the people in. The officers will break the people in the lobby. They will find out that, well, let me give you a scenario here,
Okay.
just so that we can go through it. This is an individual from Zaire on April 9th. Actually, he was on the train, because we also do train inspections at Ross's Point. He presented a U.S. passport and in this individual's name and claimed to be this individual. The officer noted that the photograph on the U.S. passport didn't match the individual who he claimed to be, so they transported him over here. The officer questioned him, and through fingerprints we were able to identify the individual as a citizen and native of Zaire who had no status in the United States, and what he was trying to do was return to his illegal residence and employment. So from then it was turned over to the seniors. In this case it was me that did this one. What we did was we pursued prosecution. We do the interview, we place the individuals under arrest. In effect, we're an extension of the U.S. Attorney's Office, Assistant U.S. Attorney's Office out of the Northern District in Albany, New York. So we got all the data, collected the information, and presented the case to one of the AUSAs down in Albany who authorized the prosecution. This individual did not waive his rights for an attorney, so he was arraigned before the local magistrate, which is Henry Van Acker, and he was then detained for prosecution and transported down to Albany, where they successfully convicted the individual. He was returned back into our custody on April 24th, brought back up here to the port, at which time he was placed in the removal proceedings under expedited removal, and we deported him back to Canada. And Canadians are going to deport him back to Zaire because he entered Canada with the fraudulent document, so they're going to remove him from Canada also. And that's basically the case on this one.
This is a fairly straightforward case. Some, I'm sure, are far multi-layered and more complicated.
Yes, yes. We have a lot of nationalities that are intercepted here at Champlain. I'm sure Noel has talked to you about the documents. We are famous for intercepting documents here on the northern border. We've got a big hub in Montreal. We're the main artery to New York City. We see documents from all over the world that a lot of other ports of entries don't see. We've had a lot of Algerians right now who are presenting photosub French passports, so that's one thing that we're really looking into.
We know what photosub means, but I did have to ask him when he started throwing these things out that are familiar shop talk for you people, which meant nothing to me until I learned it was putting another photograph on the document.
That's right, and these people come at any time of the day, and between the three of us, we're on call every third weekend. We work rotating shifts. And so when you get a call at 2 o'clock in the morning, you have to come in and do the case. And fortunately for us, it's every third weekend, so that doesn't put too much stress on our family life. But I'm sure Mark will tell you that he's received phone calls in the morning that but this is basically what we do. On prosecutions, we also handle the vehicle seizures. We have an administrative part of the law that says that anyone who is in a vehicle illegally, and the person, driver, owner of the vehicle who brings that person, the law allows us to seize that vehicle. So not only do we have the prosecution and the deportation part of it, but since October, we have seized over 64 vehicles here at Champlain.
Wow.
Yes.
Every time I hear a number, it amazes me. No kidding.
We're up to, this month alone, we're up to 24 prosecutions. Last fiscal year, we did almost 300 prosecutions here at Champlain.
And everything has to be well documented.
Yes, it does, because
the flurry of paperwork continues here as it does everywhere else.
Yes, it does.
And even more so here, I think,
Yeah.
than many other places.
Yes, just because of the nature of, you have to make sure these people understand their rights. We have a lot of people here who are multilingual, and that's a real big asset for us. And we have a lot of people in the area, with the university being so close, where
True.
we can call someone who speaks Russian, Hebrew, several of the languages that we use here, and on a moment's notice they will come. They're paid by the service, but they have spent hours and hours here helping us to find out who this person is.
At times I've been involved in that process over the years. We're talking about the interesting dilemma that might occur with our remote camera equipment if a person from China, for example, stopped at Moore's when that station is up and running, what we do. But in cases such as yours, I have been involved as a middleman in the process through the years, at times trying to find interpreters from the college, and it's a good resource down there.
Yes, it is. It's a very good resource, and they've been very, very helpful.
Terrific. Any other aspects of the job of prosecution that you might like to mention?
Well, it's a
Interesting, challenging job.
Challenging job, and you see people from all over the world. A lot of these people are here for economic reasons. A lot of people are traveling. A lot of Sri Lankans, a lot of Somalians are trying to get in because of the policies in their countries, and they're trying to have a better life for them and their children. And a lot of times the cases are very, very sad. They've paid document vendors over $5,000 to get these passports, and they've essentially sold their land and everything, and they get stopped here, and then they meet Noel.
No. He's bad. Noel's bad.
No, actually, he's very good. He's
He
good.
is very good at what he does, as
Yes,
we could
he
tell.
is. Yes, he
He's
is.
also tremendous on television and a good conversationalist, as you are. And before we leave, we have to, of course, mention that you are the 100% of the brains behind Mark Berry and everything that he does.
Well, I'm sure he'll appreciate that comment. When is this airing? Make sure he doesn't watch TV.
You have a wonderful family, and
Well, thank
obviously
you.
your kids are well looked after and taken care of. And how can you help love a bunch of kids that look like that? They're beautiful.
Thank you. Well, I have a lot of thanks to give to my parents on that, because with this job and with Mark's job, if it wasn't for my parents, I don't think I could work in this position, and they've always been there for me. So
Very supportive, yeah.
yes, on a moment's notice, I can say, "Mom, I can't pick up the kids. Can you pick them up for me?" And she's
Great
always been there.
Family is everything.
Yes,
isn't
it is. Yes, it is. So, as you know, I'm a North Country native, so it's good to be here and to be working in this area.
That's great. Thanks so much for
Thank
allowing
you.
us to come into your life here
Well,
for just a
thank you.
minute.
Thank you, and I hope people know what's going on at immigration now.
That's great.
Good.
Well, we're back where we started. If with any luck at all, when you start on a trip, you get back home safely and without getting lost or waylaid. I won't say we weren't waylaid today, but we stopped at some very interesting places at immigration along the way, and now we've even taken a look at some of the things on the wall. And we're back with Charmin. How are you, Charmin Burtz?
Very fine, thank you.
Pleased to meet you. The last time I saw you was in a volleyball court somewhere. I can't remember where.
Yes, as we follow our children around the North Country.
And we have done that for a few years.
Yes, absolutely.
And we should point out for the people who know you that you are the wife of Jean Burtz, my good friend,
Yes, I am.
who's still working very hard in his job. I don't know how for many more years, but
Probably until I retire.
oh, you got a plan.
A master plan.
Master plan. Jean works with the New York State Police, still out of Chazy.
Yes, he does. He's right now he's assigned to a special task force, so he spends a lot of time with Customs as a liaison with the state police.
He and I have been good friends and have conferred on simple and complicated cases for many, many years. And I didn't know until fairly recently that you worked here, but you've been here for how long?
It'll be 9 years in May. Before I worked here, I worked for private industry, so I'm a fairly newcomer to the service.
I promised you I wouldn't bring it up, but I've got to. You got to explain how you got your name the best way you can. I love that name.
Thank you very much. I was the third daughter, and I'm not quite sure my parents had a name picked out for a girl. And my mother tells the story that as she was laying in her hospital bed after my birth, she had her little radio on, and there was a conversation going on about Mr. Douglas, who was I think the U.S. ambassador to England, and his daughter's name was Charmin Douglas. And she was going to attend some gala event, and when my mother heard the name Charmin, she thought it was quite pretty and different. So, thus I am Charmin.
But unlike the tissue, yours starts with an S?
Absolutely, and despite the fact my husband's name is John and we get repeatedly harassed about this, I am proud of my name.
You know, I wasn't going to bring that up. You were the one that turned and went down that road.
Yeah,
But now that I think about it...
between that and the Mr. Whipple jokes, I've survived.
Oh, I think that's... Let's talk about your family now that we've mentioned your daughter.
Yes, my oldest daughter lives down in New York City. She's married. And my second oldest daughter is in England right now and in France. She's doing her last year at the University of Po in France.
Wow.
My third oldest is a freshman at Plattsburgh State. And my baby is 15, and she's a freshman at Northeastern.
Where has the time gone?
I don't know, but it is going, that's for sure.
And you've obviously spent a lot of time loving those kids and encouraging them and prodding them and getting them going in what you hope is the right direction, and you've done a lot of things right.
I hope
Sometimes you don't know where that road is going in the process, though, do you?
Absolutely not, but I know they've been very, very good years.
That's terrific. All right, let's talk about what you do here.
Okay, well, I'm a supervisor with immigration, and I've come up through the ranks. I entered as a GS5 and then progressed through the ranks of a journeyman inspector, and then I was promoted to special operations inspector, and then on to supervisor. So as of June, I've been here for a year in that capacity and thoroughly enjoy the job because every day is different, and the crew we have is incredibly good, and I enjoy the traveling public and the challenge.
We have met so many interesting people in our job today, and it's completely new for me, and I guess parts of it are new for Calvin, too, back there behind the camera. The John Q. public has no idea what goes on in here.
Absolutely not. And I'm a native from this area. And until I joined the service, I kind of always figured immigration and customs was one entity, but it's not. And the traveling public and the different nationalities and cultures that come through here is something like I've never imagined. And I only live maybe 5 miles from the port.
So what is a day like for you?
As a supervisor, well, we have the 3 different shifts. Well, actually 2 different shifts. There's a midnight shift, which is not always staffed by a supervisor. And you'll come in and you'll make up your roster for your primary inspection. And these are the people that actually go out on the highway and inspect the vehicles as they come through. Oftentimes we have an inspector in the truck booth that will also refer in secondary inspections or people we wish to speak to a little bit more. So there's a roster of the rotation from the primary line into the lobby where we actually do a more extensive interview to determine their eligibility as applicants. So I'm supervising that rotation. Also, there's always a series of questions and interpretation of the law that will be referred to a supervisor for a judgment call. There's also training that's an ongoing thing with the new officers. There are other assignments, train inspections that we're looking at and trying to make sure that there's an adequate staff to cover that. Also, we have outports. There is one in Rouse's Point and one at 276 or Overton Corners, as we say, and also in Moores. So there's constant communication between those ports of entry and Champlain over what's going on and what they need for backup. So it's a very busy day, and there's always the informational telephone calls that are referred to the supervisors. And anything and everything that comes up between the other forces, whether it be the state police or customs assistance or oftentimes with the Canadian Immigration or Customs. So it's a full day, but I do enjoy it. It's a real challenge.
I'm exhausted just listening. That's only one day.
That's only one day.
And some days are a lot harder than others.
Absolutely. There are days when a lot of us really don't have an awful lot of time to eat or to take a moment out. But again, the staff is good and they're very supportive. When we have a little downtime, then people will go off to take lunch, whether it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon or noon. So, and that way we do get a chance to take a little breather, but it's a joint effort, a real team effort around here.
Yeah, I've heard that word team effort a lot since we came in here this morning, and I guess that does make it better when you have a group of people who support each other.
You have to. Oftentimes, too, I mean, we're always here to support one another. So if there is something that happens in the lobby, whether it be a law enforcement activity or just trying to get through a task, you need the support of one another. You want to know you have a backup because this is a law enforcement agency. And we have a good relationship with Customs, and the same thing goes. If they need our assistance, whether it be a female officer to assist in a pat-down or a strip search of another female, we cooperate, and it's fun. The day can be fun because we make it fun.
As long as you have a way to unwind that brain at night.
That's what good spouses are for, and good kids, I guess.
Do you have any personal hobbies?
Right now, I'm into walking more than anything else. I had some back surgery a couple years ago, so my activities were somewhat limited, but I could always walk, and I just kept it up. And I try to do some daily routine exercises. It's good for the mind, good for the soul, I guess.
Walking is good for everybody, from what we understand now, even more so, right?
Absolutely.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for having us here today. You're terrific.
Okay, thank you
Good
very
luck,
much.
Carmen. You thought you could escape. We're back again to talk about recruiting, a major part of your job, something I've been waiting to hear about all day because so many people say, how do I get into the service? So let's get into it.
Okay, and I'll see if I can do this fairly fast for you.
Take your time.
Okay, I am a recruiter for the port. We have a couple other recruiters. We attend job fairs at the local colleges, and also we try to assist people in the local area that are concerned about immigration and would like to come on the job. There are actually 8 different officer positions within the U.S. Immigration and Naturalization Service. Immigration inspectors, which we are only one, so what I can do is give you a quick description of that and then maybe go on to the other 7. And as you listen, you can kind of make a mental note of which areas you might be interested in, and then we can go on to how you can get more information on those. The immigration inspectors, which are people like ourselves, are out there on the primary lane and also in the secondary area in the building, and we actually interview applicants for admission to determine their admissibility. We review their documents, etc. So oftentimes we're the very first person that a traveler will see when they enter the United States, so we consider our job very, very important. A couple of the other positions available are immigration agents. These people are involved in the law enforcement and administrative activities that deal with employer sanctions. A lot of times these positions are in the metropolitan areas, and they would be involved in the raids that you hear about, where if you suspect that a company has employed illegal aliens. A second one might be the deportation officer, and deportation officers are involved in the control and coordination of removal of deportable aliens. And these people work with consular agents and local law enforcement agencies, so they're more the removal. We kind of get them here, or the Border Patrol and the deportation people arrange for their actual removal from the country. We have criminal investigators who plan and conduct investigations based on leads they may get from other agencies. They apprehend criminal aliens. They get involved in testifying in behalf of the Immigration Service at court hearings. We also have adjudication officers, and this might be something good for people who are more interested in working a straight 8 to 4 job. They don't have the shift work that a lot of these other jobs have. And we do have an adjudication center over in St. Albans, Vermont. And do remind me to go back if I forget about the open positions right now. What they do is they actually review applications that people submit to determine their admissibility to the United States, whether it be a work visa or perhaps a U.S. spouse petitioning for his wife. So it's the paperwork end of it, but they also interview people from all walks of life, from people all over the world. So it's a very, very interesting occupation. I think we're down to the 7th position. Detention enforcement officers. These people are really responsible for the transportation of aliens once they're apprehended to detention facilities. They often will transport them to penal institutions. They get involved in a lot of the paperwork involved in that transportation. They aid in the deportation officers. And also the Border Patrol agents who are under Department of Justice and U.S. Immigration and Naturalization. And they deal with the detection and prevention of smuggling and the unlawful entry of illegal aliens. They're also the primary drug interdiction force along the southern border. We have a presence along the northern border, but oftentimes when people think of Border Patrol, they just think of the southern border. So those are the 8 key officer positions that we have. We do recruit. There's usually something open at all times. We do have telephone numbers that I will give you in a moment, but I do want you to be aware if you have any questions, you can contact us at this port of entry. We're going to ask you to write in because telephone calls often the telephone lines are busy, and we'd like to kind of set those aside for the more emergent needs of the general public. And I will give you that address in just a moment. We have a couple other, there's actually 3 lists that we draw from right now. One is what they call the TAPS list, and that is actually the test takers. These people would have to take the test to apply. And it's the telephone application processing system. And that would be for anyone who is not an outstanding scholar, and we do recruit outstanding scholars. They do not need to take the federal test. These outstanding scholars are described as 4-year degreed people, and they need to have a 3.5 GPA, grade point average, over the course of the 4 years. If you do think that you do qualify under the Outstanding Scholar Program, you can give us or just drop us a line at U.S. Immigration and Naturalization Service, 234 West Service Road, Champlain, New York, 12919. And what we want you to do is just indicate that you feel you're a candidate under the Outstanding Scholar Program. You could submit an unofficial or official transcript of your grades, and down the road they will request a certified copy. And a letter to Mr. Richard J. McCabe, who is the port director, and indicate that you're interested in local recruitment, if you are in local recruitment, meaning this vicinity, or you could ask us to give you information about service-wide recruitment. The other list is the Veterans, I'm going to say Rehabilitation Act, but it's the Veterans, Readjustment Appointments. And that has changed somewhat. Before, people would say, well, I'm a veteran, so I should qualify. Recently, they've changed the criteria. And basically, anyone who served on active duty between August 5th, 1964 and May 7th, 1975, you would have had 10 years after the date of your last separation from active duty. So in essence, that did cut out some of the Vietnam veterans who used to have a VRA benefit to come on the job without taking the test. It kind of cut them out. If you first entered active duty after May 7th, 1975, you have 10 years after the date of your last separation from active duty, or until December 31st, 1999, whichever is later. Again, if you need more guidance on this, just drop us a line and we'll be sure to send you out a copy of this. those people who are entitled to veterans benefits can apply for a position without taking taking the test rather. The TAPS test is basically vocabulary, reading comprehension, and analytical math. So if you do not qualify as an outstanding scholar or veteran and you do wish to get a job with the federal government, I suggest you go to your corner bookstore and ask for a book to review your vocabulary, analytical math. It's much like probably a lot of the college prep books. And sharpen your skills. And again, I'll provide you a telephone number with a telephone number that you can call in and get information about when that test will be given. And it is given locally. I know that one of the test sites is Plattsburgh, New York. There was a test given in December. There may be another one in a couple months. They may go as long as a year, depending on how far down the list they need to go to fill a job service-wide.
So what's
That's
the
a
what's the
mouthful.
number? Have you
Okay,
got
let me
it?
give you a couple numbers again.
All right.
Okay, let me give you the veterans first. And this would be for outstanding scholars as well. Again, 3.45 or a veteran. You can call 612-725-3882. I'll give you that number one more time. 612-725-3882. If you have a problem, again, contact us. We'll do what we can to help you out. If you do not fall into one of those two categories, you can call the TAPS line, the Telephone Application Processing System. It'll give you information about job availability and when the test will be given. That number, 612-725-3253. 612-725-3253. And again, any questions, just drop us a line and we'll try to help you out the best we can.
Terrific. Thanks again.
Okay, thank you very
for
much.
Chapter 2 from Charmin. We might as well wrap up our program here today since we're sitting in this comfortable chair. I don't know, that other one was really good. I'd like to throw that in the back of Calvin's car when we leave. It's been an educational, eye-opening, and even a heartwarming experience to come inside the port here in Champlain, a very busy port, one of the busiest ports along the northern border, and see some technology that's on the cutting edge of what's going to be happen with some of the unmanned ports and some of the ports that will have automatic cameras to talk to people and disembodied voices talking to people trying to get the border from inside. A very interesting process that'll be taking place. But most of all, it's always fascinating for me and to my partner Calvin Castine to meet new people and find out what they do for a living. People that have been friends of ours, we had no idea what gets them from one day to the next. We found out a great deal more about these interesting people, and we wish them all the best of everything. Thanks for joining us for this edition, and who knows where we'll be next time when we bring you our little corner.